So our next speaker is Peter Tildorowski, who is a PhD student at the University of Liverpool and part of the NHR Northwest Coast Applied Research Collaboration. And he's going to tell us about his research around seldom heard communities in big data research. So thanks, Peter.
Thank you so much, Kate. Can you just give me thumbs up so you can see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So my PhD project looks really into how we can involve and engage more seldom heard groups, communities around the big data research. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to give you some results from the interviews from the researchers and the patient public involvement engagement facilitators who actually done it. So I would like to say a big thank you to my supervisors as also to the public advisors who have been involved to this project. I really want to point out here that Sakria and Nahid have been involved in the design, analysis, and the writing of this particular research one I'm going to talk today about. So I'd like to acknowledge as well I'm funded by the ARC Northwest Coast. And let's give you a little bit of the background and a little bit of the design of the study. So we know, and I could probably heard it today from the other speakers, the public involvement and engagement is really important in the big data research. But to be honest, sometimes still is a limited evidence of how this can be effectively facilitated. And especially there is really need to understand how to ensure all voices are included. And what I'm doing here, I'm really referring to seldom heard communities. So these are really communities that are often underrepresented in research, and there can be a really long list of this. Some of them can include migrants, ethnic minorities, traveler community, or people living with disabilities. So I really like to use the seldom heard instead of hard to reach, which sometimes you can see in the literature, as really it shifts the responsibility. So when we speak about hard to reach, we place the responsibility on the community that they do not engage, whereas the seldom heard puts responsibility on the researchers to know how to involve them. So this is actually coming from another of my PhD research projects. One of the participants who is coming from the seldom heard community called researchers hard to reach community. I did not consider themselves being the hard to reach one. So what this really study I'm going to talk about, really to look how to involve and engage seldom heard communities around big data research from the researchers and facilitators perspective. So did the 12 semi-structured interviews with those people, mostly based in the UK, but also in the Canada and Belgium. The majority of participants were women, and with the average 9 years of experience as the researcher or the facilitators. And half of the participants came from the ethnic minority background, and we used the reflexive thematic analysis to actually analyze the data. So let me report some of the themes, especially these findings that refer to public involvement in projects that use health data from other sources. So the first theme is about big data being an abstract and difficult topic to members of the public. So this is often caused by using technical vocabulary and academic jargon. So many participants found it difficult to discuss with public contributors the topic using lay terms without losing the overarching aim of the conversation. So this became even harder actually when big data project did not directly refer to people's health condition as illustrated in this quote. So here Sienna is saying, project was looking at the infrastructures of big data. It was really challenging to actually put that into context. This was relevant to members of the public. They kind of said, well, we don't know if you want us to be involved. We don't really see how we can be because this is all to do with linking up data sets with each other. It's very technical. It's not really anything to do with our living experience as patients or as members of the public. So that shows that challenge of involving public contributors around those discussions. The second theme really recognizes that we need to be flexible and often creative when involving public members around big data research, especially there is no one way or a guidance to do it. And possibly it would be really even impossible to create the guidance which fit every type of the project. That's why the theme is called one size does not fit all. So researchers need to really reflect on how to involve public members, and really with the people who are interested, really consult them how this process should look like, and how the public involvement look in the person's work differ based on the projects, project needs, public interest, or the public contributors' experiences. So some of the participants spoke about public contributors contributing to the review of the data access process, being co-investigators on the specific projects, or being part of some advisory groups for specific projects or data access. The role of these advisory groups differs as well. Some of them talk about having more of the powers, others will literally be just advisory. So it can again differ. The quote coming from Victoria here is about pre-engagement and engagement. So what she is saying here is really interesting about doing that pre-work to set up the scope and the scale of the engagement work, and then to set up the environment that you would be safe as possible. So it's almost like a pre-engagement and engagement, where you're really setting up the safe environment to allow for good public engagement to happen for diverse members. So what is here really important to recognize, that if we want to involve and engage public members, we actually have to think how to do it. So there's conversations to start from this point, how they want to be involved in engaging any project. The next theme really recognizes that researchers often work with others, especially other organizations like the charities, local churches, and so on, to reach a broader section of society. And those three organizations provide, and because they already have existing links with the committee, and offer that bridge for researchers to reach the general public, so they can access with their recruitment, engagement, and so on. However, as this quote shows, there's a risk that working with particular charity will not necessarily allow to reach all communities. And that's what the Zoe here is talking about. I was kind of piggybacking on the charity, on several charities groups. I was down to who they picked up, and they were already actually meeting via Zoom the charity, because it was during the time of the COVID. So I kind of inherited the diversity or degree of diversity. So it shows the challenges to recognize that we reach public members to some particular group, we might not reach the others. To have to actually, again, reflect what is diversity appropriate for our project and how we can reach it, and what the limitation of the strategies we use. The last theme is about recognizing that public contributors need to have an opportunity and ability to fully contribute to the involvement process. What it means in practice is that public members need to be supported at each stage of the involvement. Yes, this can be time-consuming and require extra resources, but could lead to genuine involvement as better outcomes out of this involvement. And I think those of us who've done a lot of public involvement can think that we done inductions, we did trainings for those public contributors who joined. However, what came as very helpful way to approach jargon around these technical issues around the big data research is a live form of the dictionary, which can be updated as people ask different questions throughout the lifetime of the research project. That's what the Drew is talking about here. So giving a sort of chance for people to ask questions, which was a nice thing about that project, that wasn't a one-off. People could go away, look up something for themselves, and they could come back and be like, what's this? And they would post a link and we come back and answer those questions. So it's quite a nice kind of two-way in that sense. So some of the participants talk about how to use the WhatsApp, how to use the Teams or some Word document online for the public contributors actually posting those different terms, which researchers later explain it in the late terms. So actually other public contributors could look at that and explore and think about this as well. So actually when you develop this kind of mini live form of dictionary, you can reuse it for the other projects in the future too. So a couple of key points coming from the study is that three findings have shown that talking about big data with rather than to public contributors can be challenging, but that involvement can be meaningful for both researchers and the public contributors. And really what is very important as well is that involvement should not be tokenistic. It really needs to ensure there is that power sharing relationship between the research team and the public contributors. And that's something which to be agreed from the beginning, what the role of the public contributors is, how they're being supported, how they can feel as a part of the team as well. But at the same time, we need to rethink and all the time reflect on the process and the involvement, but there's no one right way to do it. And really the strategy depends on the project needs, often what are actually our financial resources or the time as we can to conduct particular project, and also the particular public contributors' interest, to recognize that some people will be interested to be involved in one aspect, but less in another. That's worth to have that discussion that was recognized by the participants as well. So the question will be later, but if there be something which you want to get in touch with me, that's my email address and Twitter. And I pass back to Katie now.
Sorry. Thank you. Thanks very much, Peter.